everyone, welcome to our noon edition of Arirang News on National Liberation Day, or Gwangbokjeol in Korean, the day Korea was liberated from Japan's 35 years of colonial rule. So today, August 15th, marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule. A commemorative ceremony was held this morning in Seoul, where President Lee Jae-myung delivered his first Liberation Day address since taking office. For more on this, let's go live to our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin. Yoo-jin, tell us more.
Right, Inji. So the ceremony you just mentioned ended about half an hour ago at the Sejong Center for the Performing Arts, which is right next to where our Arirang News booth is at here at Gwanghwamun Square. So Friday's ceremony was attended by some 2,500 people, including President Lee Jae-myung, First Lady Kim Hae-kyung, as well as families of the late independence activists. Now, as you mentioned, as this marks the very first Liberation Day since President Lee took office, all eyes were on what kind of message he will deliver in his customary presidential Liberation Day address. And just like his predecessors, the president used the occasion to honor and thank independence fighters while also laying on messages for North Korea and Japan. So first, on North Korea, the president reaffirmed his commitment for resuming peaceful dialogue.
남북 간 우발적 충돌 방지와 군사적 신뢰 구축을 위해 9.19 군사 합의를 선제적으로 그리고 단계적으로 복원해 나가겠습니다. 광복 80주년인 올해가 대립과 적대의 시대를 끝내고 평화 공존과 공동 성장의 한반도 새 시대를 함께 열어갈 적기라고 생각합니다.
He also stressed that a nuclear-free Korean peninsula must be achieved through both international cooperation and direct talks with Pyongyang, and also between North Korea and the United States. Now, turning to Japan, where a summit between the two leaders is set for next week, the president reiterated what he calls the two-track policy, which is separating historical disputes with future bilateral cooperation. Take a listen.
셔틀 외교를 통해 자주 만나고 솔직히 대화하면서 일본과 미래지향적인 상생협력의 길을 모색하겠습니다. 일본 정부가 과거의 아픈 역사를 직시하고 양국 간 신뢰가 훼손되지 않게 노력해 줄 것으로 기대합니다.
And Yoo-jin, the Liberation Day ceremony has ended, but President Lee's schedule isn't over yet, right?
You're right. So the highlight of tonight will come here at Gwanghwamun Square, where the government has prepared what it calls the People's Appointment Ceremony, or civic inauguration. Now, for those who are unaware, you can kind of think of it as a de facto inauguration ceremony of President Lee Jae-myung. I want to remind you that the president started his term back in early June without a formal inauguration ceremony after winning a snap presidential election. So to give you a preview, the event will feature President Lee receiving symbolic letters of appointment from selected members of the public, which will be followed by his thank you address. Now, before that, President Lee is set to host a dinner with foreign diplomats as well as heads of international organizations, which will take place at the Yeongbin-gun Reception Hall in Cheongwade, the former presidential compound. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Inji.
All right, that was our Song Yoo-jin live from Gwanghwamun Square. Thank you for that, Yoo-jin. So as South Korea marks its liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the faces and voices of independence heroes are being brought back to life at a special exhibition here in Seoul with the help of artificial intelligence. Our Park Hyo-bin was there.
5 Korean independence heroes stand before the national flag of Korea, raising their hands in triumph. To mark the 80th Liberation Day of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the National Museum of Korea has restored the faces of 5 iconic figures using cutting-edge AI technology.
Right behind me, there are 5 Korean independence heroes brought back to life using AI. They never lived to see Korea's independence. But today, they are smiling at us as if they are seeing the free Korea that they once dreamed of.
An Jung-gun, who assassinated Japanese Governor Ito Hirobumi, now waves with a bright smile. Yoo Gun-sun, who died in prison at 17, appears as a shy girl with gentle smile. Lee Bong-chang and Yoon Bong-gil, who threw bombs at Japanese leaders, come alive with warm expressions. And An Chang-ho, an educator and activist, greets with a friendly wave.
It was amazing to see what I had only imagined from textbooks. Since it's the 80th anniversary, it really feels like a meaningful exhibition.
Through AI recreation, I could almost feel their spirit and character.
It's not just their faces that have returned. A separate video project by the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs and a local company used AI to recreate the sound of cheers from 1945, the very moment Korea regained its freedom. Behind that joy lies a darker history, one the museum is also determined to show. For the first time ever, Japan's surveillance cards of independence heroes are on display. In particular, the 5 surveillance cards of An Chang-ho show how his face grew notably gaunt through repeated imprisonments.
These cards were made to systematically manage imprisoned independence activists. They're about palm-sized, but filled with detailed information, including names and photos.
Liberation Day in Korea is more than a historical anniversary. It's a moment to reflect on the cost of freedom and to honor those who paid that price. And now, with AI, the voices and faces of Korea's fight for independence can finally be seen and heard. Park Hoo-bin, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has hailed the country's solidarity with Russia as infinite might. North Korea's state news agency, the KCNA, reported on Friday that Kim delivered the remarks marking the 80th anniversary of the Korean Peninsula's liberation from Japan's colonial rule, with Russian officials in attendance. This marks the first time he has given a public speech on the August 15th anniversary. Kim highlighted the infinite might of North Korea-Russia solidarity, which he stated was forged with sublime ideas and genuine friendship. However, Kim made no mention of relations with either South Korea or the United States. And over in Japan, a senior official has visited a controversial war shrine in Tokyo on the anniversary of the end of World War II. Japan's Kyodo News reported that the country's agriculture minister, Shinjiro Koizumi, on Friday visited the Yasukuni Shrine, a place often seen as a symbol of Japan's imperial military past. Koizumi, a powerful figure seen as someone who could potentially be the country's next prime minister, is the first Ishiba cabinet official to visit the war shrine. The Yasukuni Shrine honors Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals, so visits there have irked Japan's neighbors, specifically Korea and China. In other news, a day ahead of Friday's summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, both leaders have contrasting priorities regarding the prolonged conflict in Ukraine. Our Moon Ji-young explains more.
The summit between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska comes as the international community watches closely for any potential breakthrough in the war in Ukraine. While President Putin has consistently affirmed Russia's objective is to secure Ukrainian territory, President Trump has made his aspirations clear to emerge as a global peacemaker.
We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. And maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along. I would say that tomorrow, all I want to do is set the table for the next meeting, which should happen shortly.
The Kremlin announced on Thursday that the main topic of the summit would be resolving the war in Ukraine. President Putin commented on President Trump's efforts to end the Ukraine conflict, noting they were quite energetic and sincere during a meeting with senior Russian officials. This remark has been interpreted by some, including Bloomberg, as part of a flattery strategy that has previously proven effective with Trump. Putin also expressed Russia's willingness to engage in discussions for a new arms control treaty with the U.S. This signals a shift from Moscow's prior hardline stance, which saw Russia declare its non-participation in extending the New START treaty, set to expire in February next year, and withdrawing its ratification of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Adding to Russia's ongoing diplomatic outreach, the chief of its parliamentary lower house met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang on Thursday, conveying greetings from President Putin, according to TASS. 문지영, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 6 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.